Hi again, folks. Andy here, going to carry on with some of the revolve type modeling and showing you editing of, in this case, a fairly interesting part that I think it'll end up looking like a small machine screw, although the dimensions are quite wonky because I made it 40 millimeters, I think, in radius, which is actually a big machine screw. But the operations are the same. So let's get started. Here we are back at the place we left off. We've got this part that I've taken some pains to make some realistic features to it. And I want to add some more detail to it that would be representative of what the actual device is. So let's get started with that. First of all, if this actually is going to be some kind of a screw, then on the top plane there would need to be some way to put a screwdriver in it of some kind. So I'm going to use a cut, an extruded cut. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to select on that top plane. And as you've seen before, you'll notice that when I'm in a sketch mode, this red X and this blue accept sketch symbol come up to indicate that that's what I'm working on. And because I picked that plane on the top, everything I do should work on that plane. And sometimes it's hard to know where you're actually working, but if I just selected a rectangle, you can see it's drawing it on that surface. I don't want to have a rectangle in this case. I'm going to make a hex head screw, and you'll see that there's a polygon tool in Sketch right here. I can pick for this polygon the center of the circle right there. You can see when I mouse over it, the snaps, which I'll talk about in a minute, help me select the center, and a single right click, and now I've got this symbol that is a hex showing here, and I've selected that. Now the hex is six-sided, which is a hexagon. That's good. The inscribed circle I can define. Maybe I want that to be 30 millimeters. Now if I was actually making a machine part, I would know the size of the hex to fit a key, but that's sufficient for me now too. I can also set the angle of one of the sides, which, as you can see, if I change it, rotates it around. I'm going to set that back to 0 because it's nice to have some reference angle that's actually oriented properly. And there we have it. So I've drawn a polygon there. I'm going to accept that. And actually, that's what I wanted to do. So I'm happy with that sketch. I entered the dimensions differently. I didn't use the Smart Dimension tool. Rather, I did it within the Hex tool. And I'm going to accept that. Now, it wants to know how far I want to make that part deep. Well, I can grab this and I can drag it down. If I drag it down too far, it's going to cut through the walls of my part, and that wouldn't be very nice. I can set it up to be 10 millimeters. Maybe I want it to be 12 millimeters. This is one big screw. The other thing that would be unrealistic would be to have this actually completely straight. In a real part, there might be a little bit of a draft to it, a little bit of an angle, and you can see that I could make that extreme, which probably isn't realistic. Now, I'm showing you this not so you can go and model a screw, but I want you to see some of the tools and features that you can play with. So I'll accept that. There, now I've cut away, using the cut tool, a socket in the middle of this custom screw that I'm making. Now, like anything, I might want to get rid of the sharp edges on the inside to make it more realistic. And You've seen how to do that already, so there's not much point in showing you again. So we'll leave it at that. But there's one thing that would be really nice to be able to do on this screw, and that would be actually cut a thread on it. Well, if you look in the features tools, now we've gotten out of the sketch. We're working on what is essentially a solid right now. And you'll see that in the features menu, there's a lot of solid type operations you can do, and I encourage you to try out some of those things. One of the options here is a curve, and we can make a helix and a spiral. So to start out with, I selected that. Now it will always, every tool will always come up and tell you what it wants done next, telling you what to select. So in this case, I can pick a plane, a planar face, or an edge on which to sketch a circle to define the helix or the cross section. So I'm going to do that, and if I look at this part, I wonder, well, where should I pick a circle? I could pick, and it won't let me pick some of these things. So that's not too helpful. The interesting thing about any CAD package like this is that you just have to try it. And so what I'm trying to do with these videos is show you not the already perfect way to draw something, but I want to show you the problems you're going to encounter and how to overcome them. So clearly, if I want to make that helix curve, I have to do something else. It was looking for a plane or a sketch to start with. So I can create planes. Here, beside that, if I pick reference geometry, I click a plane, then it comes up with looking for things to guide the plane. So if I select that bounding curve, then it's given me a plane that intersects just that curve at the edge of the fillet that I'd put on the device. I could have just as easily picked this one. And depending on what you select, it will want other references to define the plane. You'll get frustrated by this, at least I certainly do when I use them for more complicated things, but that is essentially the plane. Now you can also flip the positive normal direction. In our case, that's not going to make too much difference, but I'm going to select it that way. And there. So we've created a new plane. It's called plane 1, and I could rename it. I could call it thread base. There. And I'm going to go back to this helix. And so now I have a plane that it will be happy with. And I will draw a circle on that plane. The circle is going to be at the center, and the circle will be ideally locked to the edge of the part that I've drawn. And you'll see when you mouse over, I'm not selecting anything, I'm just dragging the mouse over. SolidWorks is smart enough to know that I want to lock on to that surface. There. And so now the helix tool has started. How many revolutions do I want? Well, I want more than one. And what pitch do I want? Oh, I don't want 30 millimeters. Let's say I want 3 millimeters. 4. Now, if I knew the actual thread dimension, let's make it 5. If I knew the actual thread dimension, that would be a whole lot easier. And I'm going to just add more and more and more revolutions until I fill up the whole length of my screw. There. And so I've got this sketch now that's drawn on the surface of the part as a helix. There. So what has that got us other than a curvy line? Well, there's a really handy tool that I use a lot called a swept cut. And I've just made this curve with the helix, and I'm going to try making a swept cut. There's a few ways to do this, to do something, but I'm going to cut away actually the part to make the thread. I could cut away along this helix. I've already selected it, so that's what it knows as the path. And I'm actually going to do it an easy way, which is not exactly the most accurate. I'm just going to select a circular profile, and it allows me to specify the diameter of the circular cutting tool essentially, and I'm going to make that, let's see, 2.5. And it shows me what's going to cut away at my part. Maybe I'll make it 4.5. That's interesting. And if I select that, then this doesn't look like a realistic thread, but I could be more fancy with it if I wanted to. Just doing that circular cut was kind of cool. And so I've drawn a spiral and I've cut away the part. There's so many different interesting and unique tools that you can play with here that really you can model anything or pretty close to anything. Now if I wanted to make this a proper screw thread, I could actually go back in, and instead of drawing this as a circle, I'd have to have a sketch profile.